All right, so today we're going to be talking about serializers and excuse me, serializers allow us to break from the concept of views fully when we're working with APIs. And what we do is that we mold the data that we get back from our database or what have you in a object-oriented fashion. So because we're working with an API, we don't have views where we can kind of do our dirty work for us, so we have to rely on serializers in order to present to whatever's consuming our API what we want them to see. So a little bit of kind of like under the hood stuff. When we call render JSON in our application, what Rails does is it makes a call to as JSON under the hood unless we have a serializer set up. So what happens is that as JSON calls to JSON and our response is generated. With so far, we've used rendered JSON in a way that all of our data related with the resources in our database is sent back to the client as is. And that's fine, but let's imagine that we don't want the raw guts of our model converted to JSON and provided to the world, um, you know, without any kind of filtering. Maybe a good example of this is like, let's say we were running the witness protection program and we had a database of witnesses, right? Like maybe we would want to display their alias but not like their real name, and so forth. You could be running a store and you could have in the database stored how popular an item is, or perhaps the price history. This is not necessarily information you just want anyone to have. So what we're going to do is that we're going to build on our existing project, and I have this existing project already, and we're going to do clone examples stop get. And this is an application that just so far we're gonna go with building. We are going to bundle. Cool. And let's take a look at what's in here. Essentially, right now we have a API that just serves up items. That's it. And so the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to hop down to our gem file, and we're going to add the faker gem to help us build some fake items. And while I'm here, I'm going to take out Spring and Spring Watcher to make sure that I don't have any issues with that. Cool. So switch screens, and we are going to, oops, going to bundle. Cool. Faker gems all installed. And our next step is what we have to do is we have to start adding our relationships in here. But before we do that, we're going to need to add some new models. So the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to do Rails G model order number. That's going to create an order model with order number there. Cool. And then we're going to make an order items table. Rails G model order item order references item references item price integer quantity integer. Cool. So we're going to bundle exec rake db create. Let's create our databases as we needed. Cool. Then we are going to migrate. Excellent. And now let's start adding these relationships. So in our item.rb, we're going to add the relationships has many order items. Oops. Has many orders. Whoops. Orders through order items. Okay. Making sure that orders have items and items have orders, and then using order items table as the join. And we're going to go into order, and in here, very similarly, has many order items has many items through order items. Apologize for the pause. For some reason, my mind blanked out and I thought it was an item for some reason. Cool. So we've set up the relationship, and what we're going to do next is we're going to create a seed file that's going to create some stuff for us. So what we're going to do here is 10.timesDo item.create. No, wait. Item.create name faker commerce.product name. Essentially using the faker gem to create some fake things for us. Description faker Chuck Norris .fact. End. Cool. So we create some items. We're going to use, let's make some orders. 10.timesDo order dot create order number, and we're just going to set a random number here from between 100,000 to essentially 1,000,000. Cool, so we have orders, and now what we're going to do is that we're going to create some order items to link the two. TimesDo order item.create item ID rand 110 order ID between 110 item price is going to be between $1 to $1,000, $100, sorry, and quantity is going to be between 1 and 10. Cool. We've created some items, some orders, and we're going to link the two. Rake, bundle exec rake db seed. And that'll run the seed file. Oh, looks like got an extra comma somewhere. Item ID, order ID. Let's do this. This will be a little easier to read. Cool. Let's run it again. All right. Oh boy. Unexpected keyword end. Yep. Too many friends. Yep. And it looks like it took. No errors this time, so hopefully that ran. I am bad at typing, as you can see. So our next step is that we need to create our controller. Rails G controller API v1 orders index show. So what this does is it creates an orders controller in the API v1 namespace /folders and gives it the index and show. And we run it. We see here, we see the creates the file, does the adding the routes. The one thing I want to warn you about this is that it automatically creates the routes, but if you have other routes in there, we have some problems. Like you see here, we have like this different kind of syntax. It isn't very aware of what else is happening. So what I'm going to do is to kind of slim this down a little bit, I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to do this: resources, orders, only, and show. Right, that's essentially the same thing. Okay, so now what we're going to do is that we're going to go to the orders, orders controller, and we see that we have the index and the show actions already created for us. So we're going to do, we know so far, like from the last video, how to just have an API respond. So what we're going to do is that here is going to be render JSON order.all, render JSON order.find params ID. Cool. So over here, let's do it over here. We're going to Rails S start our server. Cool. And I'm going to go to my browser, and we're going to do API v1 orders. And we see here that however API, and it's returning things. That's the index view. Let's throw a 1 on there. We'll see the show view. It works. Excellent. So we have our response on our server, but as we discussed before, it's not JSON API 1.0, and it's created that and it's updated that stuff, which I don't really need right now. And so how do we do it? We bring the serializer, and the serializer, like I said before, is kind of like your views for your API, and let's get that working for us. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to editor, and we're going to go to our gem file, and we're going to add in our gem that is going to let us use, the serializer gem. Previously, we used to teach active model serializers, but that hasn't been updated in 2 years, and so we're using Netflix's fast JSON API. A couple reasons why. One, it's actively being updated. Two, they want the syntax to kind of work very similarly to that of active model serializers. Three, they're saying it's about 25 times as fast. Pretty good. And finally, it adheres to the JSON API 1.0 spec, which is pretty standard. I think standard is a better term than spec. So we're going to do fast underscore JSON API. Put that there. Over here, let's stop the server and bundle. Cool. We'll start it up again. And so we're going to now use the built-in generator in order to make ourselves a serializer, right? So we do Rails G serializer order. We're making a serializer because we're working for order, because we're working with order kind of stuff. And we're going to tell it ID and order number. This creates a serializer, and we're going to take a look at that now. And we see here that we have this code generated for us, and it says these attributes, ID, order number. What this means is that when we create this kind of stuff, what's going to happen is that we will only see the ID and the order number. We're not going to see that the created at, updated at. We are explicitly revealing what we want to see. I kind of like give it, like when I talk about objects in Ruby, right? We don't expose instance variables with the add or reader unless we want to, right? So this is kind of the same thing. We're choosing exactly what we're going to send out and no more. Like, why give everyone everything? You have everything to access if you don't need to. So we have the serializer, and you're like, cool, that's the thing. Let's hit this. Let's go back to the index view, index thing, and like, whoa, I still see created and updated at. Why is that? Well, the reason why is that if we go to the orders controller, are we using serializers here at all? No, we're not. So what we have to do, what we're going to do is that we're going to take our kind of like what we want to get rendered in JSON, send that to the serializer, have the serializer do its magic, and then render that in JSON. So what we do here is we do order serializer.new, and we pass it order.all. And I over here, I hit refresh. Give it a second as it does it the first time. Also, my computer is weird. Uh-oh. Did I forget to save something? Let's restart the server just to make sure. cool. I guess I need to restart the server to make it see the thing. But you see here that we have this data top level key, and now we see that we have the 0. And let's actually see raw data and pre-print this. We can see actually the structure, and we see that we have the data key, and we have the ID type, and then attributes, the ID and the order number. Note that there was no mention of the create and update. So let's see the show view, and we see let's go back to the raw data. We see here that it's still the same thing. Why is that? That's because over here we have not done the same thing to the show, and we're going to do the same thing to the show. Save it, refresh, give it a moment. And there we go. Fantastic. So now we've got this thing, it does the stuff, and we're saying to the serializer, stuff gets serialized and written to JSON. But what if we want to see some action relationships, right? Because don't orders have items, right? We did all that work. Don't we? Well, what if we want to show that stuff? Well, to do that, we go back to our serializer, and we can add this. It's they've made this pretty easy for us, and the syntax is very similar. It has many items. Let's hit refresh, and we see here on the relationships key, we have the ID and the kind of item it is, which is awesome. But the thing is that we are not limited to what we have in the serializer. I mean, we're not limited to the stuff in like kind of the model and the object to show what we have. Let's say we wanted to have a count of how many items it has. Well, you could, as the client, after you get the after you get the items, you could count them. But that's kind of like why don't we do that? Because we are nice people. Let's give that information to them in our API. So over here, what we do is that we use this kind of syntax. And let's say if we wanted to call the number of items like num items, we do this attribute. On a singular, note how the top was attributes, right? We, as a symbol, we call what we want it to be. Like, well, this is the attribute key that we're going to use as a symbol, and we're going to use this do block very similar to an enum object, and we'll do object.items.count. And what this does is that this kind of handles many cases. In a show view, when we're only working with one order, it will set as an attribute num items how many items this order has. But when we're doing something like the index view, when we're sending all of the orders through, what it's going to do is that it will give us as an attribute the count for every single one. So to see that, we have this here. I'm going to refresh, and we see here that we now have an attribute called num items that says this has 12. And when we go back to the index view, we see that for the first one we have 12, which we expected. For the second one, we've got 11. The third one, we've got 10. The fourth one, we've got 8, 12, and it is, oh, there's one before. So that's how you do this. And this is, the syntax. It's a little weird because you are passing this method the symbol of the attribute you want, and then you have this block. So you're kind of mixing a couple things. It's a little strange. The syntax is a little strange, but you get used to it. And so, this is like kind of like a calculated value, and we don't have to stop here. We can do anything we want. We can have a kind of a static attribute that's not a part of the calculation. So let's say we are a friendly store with orders and items, and we want to send along a little greeting with each order that we send out. That's fine. We do attribute greeting do, and we don't need to pass a block parameter this time, and we can just do hello friends. And when we go back here, let's do in the show view again, so it's a little easier to see. And we see we have under attribute the greeting hello friends. And that is how to get active models, not active model serializers, fast JSON API in your API.